Former AEW World Champion CM Punk is reportedly in a strong position to return to All Elite Wrestling in 2023. He's also posted a picture on his Instagram story as he recovers from a torn triceps injury that he could return to the ring from later on this year. We've also got an update on the Young Bucks, their AEW contract extension negotiations, conflicting reports about how far in the process they currently are. We've also got the ratings from this week's edition of AEW Dynamite on TBS, a massive update of Kenny Omega in New Japan Pro Wrestling. New Japan Strong, speaking of that show, it reportedly is finishing very soon in the future amid possible Ring of Honor rumours. Also got an update on Battle of the Bouts after this week's edition of the show. Tony Khan comments on Vince McMahon's return to WWE, so does MJF as well, and also an AEW star that reportedly is in line for a major push. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling. And of course, we have to start off talking about the Second City Savior himself. CM Punk, the two-time AEW World Champion, possibly, just possibly, despite at one point it being claimed he would never, ever, ever wrestle inside of an AEW ring again. Well, maybe not so fast, maybe not so quickly, because CM Punk could be in a strong position for an AEW return this year. Some, of course, may not want CM Punk to return to AEW, but that doesn't mean that his return wouldn't be best for business and the bottom line of All Elite Wrestling, with previous reports stating that some had claimed CM Punk was a, quote, cancer to the locker room of AEW, that person actually being Chris Jericho. There was also Dax Harwood's podcast suggestion that CM Punk and the Elite should work out their differences, leading to some in AEW being unhappy with the suggestion. It would seem pretty clear that a Punk return wouldn't be the most welcome of options for some in All Elite Wrestling. There is, though, however, a very strong reason for AEW President Tony Khan wanting to bring CM Punk back, and that would be, one thing, money. In the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave Meltzer reported, quote, "Things have heated up regarding the Dax Harwood podcast and CM Punk seemingly pushing that he wants to come back and do business." Punk posted a photo of him with FTR on Instagram, as well as pushing his number 2 in merch sales and a list of the most watched YouTube videos from AEW in 2022, of which he was in many of them, including the top 2. The popularity of CM Punk among the wrestling audience can't be understated, with this impact for a man who hasn't been seen on AEW television since September of last year. With the belief being that Tony Khan and CM Punk are working on a contract buyout with a no non-compete clause being the sticking point, Meltzer has now suggested an alternative path for negotiations, suggesting, quote, "The unique part of this story is the dissension would likely be a benefit to Punk, as would falling business numbers, because Punk's value would be the idea he could get numbers back up during what could be a contract year with Warner Bros. Discovery. In theory, he should be okay by April or May after his tricep surgery. This would also be around the time that FTR's contract expires." Whilst much of the reaction to the first episode of FTR with Dax centered around CM Punk, Meltzer would also highlight a missed piece of news saying, quote, "While there was a ton of talk about Dax Harwood's podcast within the company, one thing that didn't seem to get around or mentioned was him saying that if there was a Mount Rushmore of tag teams, that the Young Bucks should be on it for all the things they've done in the ring and their influence on the business," suggesting that someone may be focusing on maybe the more salacious issues coming out of the podcast. Now, of course, Punk hasn't been seen on AEW television since the AEW All Out pay-per-view last September. During that pay-per-view, Punk suffered an injury during the main event match with Jon Moxley, where he captured the AEW World Championship for a second time. Punk then went on to take part at the All Out media scrum, which led to himself and the Elite being suspended by the company due to their backstage brawl. There has been an update on Punk's status with the company since then, but he is still rehabbing the triceps injury he suffered during the match. Punk took to his Instagram story over the last few days to post a picture that you can see on the screen right now. It's a picture of him in the gym, which is a positive sign for his injury rehab. Punk's status in AEW has only got more confusing since All Out, with various top stars in the company claiming they would, quote, make sure Punk would not return to the company. Again, that one name being the same name that referred to CM Punk as a cancer to the company, the one that is Chris Jericho. But as you can see right there, that's a picture of Punk's training, seemingly ahead of a return, or seemingly just rehabbing his torn triceps injury. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comment section below. But steering back to Punk and steering back to the podcast that caused a lot of controversy, Dax Harwood has responded to maybe some perceived heat that he has drawn backstage in AEW. with Harwood having expressed the hope that CM Punk and the Elite could overcome their differences to work together, there were reports that people were, quote, not particularly happy at all about this. Harwood was asked whether he was surprised by the response of downloads of the debut episode, whilst on the second episode of FTR with Dax Harwood. Howard responded to the question saying, quote, all of the above. We got a response from Road Dogg, and maybe we'll talk about that one day. He went on his YouTube page and he had a response for us. But, there were some people that didn't like a lot of the things I said, and that's okay. I still have the same love for you that I do for all of the people that love me because, man, you're a wrestling fan and you're passionate. So I've been there and I completely understand where you're coming from. He reflected on the largely positive response to his first episode, stating, quote, but man, more often than not, people loved it. They absolutely loved the podcast. They love the openness. And like I said, on our screener, one thing I will never ever do is I'll never lie to my fans, because I think if I lied to them, they could see right through me. Or if I think I was sugarcoating anything, they'd see right through me. And I don't want to ever do that. Reiterating his belief in telling the truth or being exposed, Howard went on to name a WWE Hall of Famer who had given him sound advice, concluding, quote, Bret Hart said that you can never go wrong by telling the truth, In short, maybe exaggerating or lying could help you and make you feel better, but in the long run, telling the truth is always the way to go. And so I'm going to pride myself on always telling the truth. So Howard basically saying, I don't care about any heat that I've received. I don't care about any backlash because I'm always going to tell the truth. Now, speaking of Dax as well, of course, FTR, they've been on a losing streak recently, and they recently lost the AAA Tag Team Championship. And Dax Harwood actually revealed on that podcast that he wasn't even supposed to wrestle in the match. They dropped the championships in. Harwood and Wheeler dropped the gold to Dragon Lee and Dralistico at the December 28 AAA Noche de Campeones show. Moments later, Dragon Lee announced, of course, that he had signed with WWE. FTR had held the gold for 438 days, winning the AAA Tag Team Championships from the Lucha Brothers on the October 16, 2021 edition of AEW Dynamite. Speaking on the FTR podcast with Matt Coon, Harwood noted that he was advised by AEW's Dr. Michael Sampson to miss the show. He said, quote, it's the most painful bump I've ever had. I still have a knot on my ass all the way up to my lower back. I have a bruise that has completely covered my left butt cheek. Doc Sampson did not want me to go to Mexico to work. He wanted me to stay at home. He told me that if it turned into a hematoma and if I took a bump the wrong way, or if I fell on my ass, or if I hit the rope or the turnbuckle too hard and it exploded in my butt cheek, the blood would explode in there, get into the muscle, and somehow that would make it tear way easier, and it would require surgery that would keep me out for a very long time. I told Doc I have to go. It's the right thing to do for Conan, who treated me so well. I want to do this for Dragon Lee and Dralistico. I'll take care of myself, I promise. I hope he didn't watch the match because I promised I wouldn't hit the rope or the turnbuckle or take a bump. I did all of those three things and it hurt like hell. But I made it out and I was okay. Of course, FTR wanted to drop the AAA Tag Team Championships before the end of 2022, and they did just that. So that's the latest about Punk. Do you think Punk could return? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and let me know your thoughts on Dax Harwood and all of his comments recently. Now, a team that's largely associated with FTR is the Young Bucks due to their conflicting relationship. But will the Young Bucks be staying in AEW? It sure seemed to be that way, as word began circulating this week that Matt and Nick Jackson were talking about a deal once again with Tony Khan, but a conflicting report on the Wrestling Observer Radio now calls that into question. New information claims that the Bucks' current deals at the end of 2023 expire, and that's while AEW has reached out to the Jacksons to express a desire to enter negotiations, nothing has transpired as of yet, meaning no agreement is close. This comes off the heels of a Fightful Select report from Sean Ross Sapp, where there were rumblings in the AEW locker room that the Bucks and AEW were already in negotiations for a new contract that would keep them with the company for quite some time. Both things, of course, can't be true at the same time. Now, Meltzer is reporting, and in this kind of instance, you're probably more likely to lean into Meltzer because he's probably spoken to the Bucks themselves. They've said that AEW wants them to stay, but actual active negotiations haven't started right now. Things were also made fuzzy on the length of the Bucks' contract now. The duo themselves suggested on social media back in November of 2021 that their contracts ran until 2024, not 2023 as suggested previously. The expiration date on fellow Elite member Kenny Omega's deal also seems to be a point of confusion, with everything from February of 2023 to sometime at the end of the year being thrown out there with less than pinpoint accuracy, largely due to the fact that Kenny Omega was on the shelf for a long period of time, meaning that time could have been added added on, or his contract may have been frozen due to the amount of time he was out of action for injury. Factoring in whether or not the Young Bucks are talking contract with AEW at the moment, that once again raises questions about the long-term future of the Elite in All Elite Wrestling, if they are yet to determine if they're sticking around or contemplating wrestling elsewhere. So at the moment, are both sides working to extend their working relationship or not? We'll have to wait and see, basically. But you can let me know if you would like to see the Young Bucks staying AEW or what you think is going to be the outcome of any negotiations. This is a really interesting story and a big story because, of course, this past week on TBS on Wednesday, we saw the new version of AEW Dynamite. New graphics, new stage, new layout, a new revamped version of the show. And people were hoping that the first show of 2023 would lead to a big rating success. And frankly, it did not. The first AEW Dynamite of 2023 is in the books, with AEW teasing a new look coming to both Dynamite and Rampage and a fun match card. The promotion was looking to start off with a bang to begin the year. So after the prior week's New Year's Smash episode suffered a dip in the ratings, was Wednesday night's episode able to steer the ship? Unfortunately, Dynamite numbers continued their downward trend, albeit with a slight decrease. WrestleNomics reported that Wednesday night's episode reeled in an average total viewership of 864,000 viewers, which is down. This is the big and I suppose the most important number, because we have seen AEW have this sort of cyclical kind of look to them, particularly for the year. The viewership of 864,000 viewers is down 14% compared to 1 year ago. In the key 18 to 49 demographic, the show received a 0.26 rating, a 7% decrease from last week. In addition, the program ranked 4th in cable originals, behind the coverage of 2 NBA basketball games and Sports Center on ESPN. AEW brought a new look to Dynamite. The show redesigned its visual elements, match cards, and even its intro video. AEW also gained a new set design, departing from its two-tunnel stage to a primarily LED screen presentation. So once again, I think they hoped that number would be higher, but as I mentioned, this time last year, Dynamite was being watched by 14% more people and a 14% bigger audience. So what are they going to do to counteract that? Well, they've certainly loaded up this week's show, which is going to be taking place in California, of course, at the Kia Forum. They've got that. Even though Soraya's named the tag team partner, there still could be a debut, certainly. We've got the Escalera de la Muerte match for the Trios Championships. We've got big matches loaded up for the show. Jon Moxley, Hangman Adam Page. So maybe this week will prove more fruitful for AEW, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, speaking of Darby Allin, of course, he won the TNT Championship this past week on Dynamite. And Tony Khan had announced a defense of the title that was, of course, on Rampage this past week, which, of course, Darby Allin retained. And it'll be interesting to see, certainly, if there are more title defenses announced going forward. We'll have to wait and see, but certainly Darby Allin was the focal point of that show, and let me know your thoughts in the ratings below. Kenny Omega and New Japan Pro Wrestling. It's been a big week for Kenny Omega, of course, in New Japan Pro Wrestling. AEW star Kenny Omega has revealed that he's interested in facing off against a popular former New Japan Pro Wrestling name. Following Omega's IWGP US Championship victory at Wrestle Kingdom 17, there has been a lot of speculation about the AEW EVP's New Japan future. Speaking with Tokyo Sports, Omega revealed that he wants to share the ring with current provisional KOPW 2023 champion Shingo Takagi. Discussing the potential dream match, Omega said, quote, "Someday I want to try with Shingo Takagi, Kenny and Kazuki Ishii, and Takagi and Yamato, which took place in Osaka on June 5th, 2012, before I went to New Japan Pro Wrestling for the first time, are great. It was an interesting match. Ever since then, I thought I would be able to have a good singles match with them. I didn't have the chance when I was in New Japan, but now Takagi is also on top. I think it's the best timing." Omega, of course, left New Japan in January of 2019 to help form AEW. Takagi joined New Japan in October 2018 as part of the junior heavyweight division before moving to the heavyweight division in 2019 and becoming the third ever IWGP World Heavyweight Champion in June of 2021. At January 5th's New Year's Dash event, Takagi defeated Great Okan, Sho, and Toru Yano to win the provisional KOPW 2023 title bout. Now, when he's also spoken about plans for the IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship, AEW star Kenny Omega has commented on his hopes for the future following his big championship victory at Wrestle Kingdom 17. Of course, Omega made his return to New Japan at the aforementioned event, wrestling Will Ospreay in his first New Japan match since January of 2019. After a brutal bout, Omega hit his one-winged angel finisher and pinned him to become the new IWGP US Champion. Speaking with Tokyo Sports, Omega stated that he plans to defend the gold in New Japan or in his home promotion of AEW. Recalling his previous IWGP US title reign, Omega said, quote, "I want to defend the title in either New Japan or AEW. When I was US champion, I had the most of my defenses in Japan, so I want to do it not only in the United States, but also in Japan." Omega, of course, became the inaugural IWGP US champion in July 2017 and held the title for 210 days before dropping the gold to Jay White in January of 2018. He'll also have the opportunity to become a double champion this coming week on Dynamite in that Trios ladder match, which is the final match in the Best of 7 series against Death Triangle. But also, whilst he was out in Japan, he had many memorable moments, including his Golden Lovers tag team alongside Kota Ibushi. Now, he actually has reunited with Kota Ibushi this week. Ibushi has not wrestled for New Japan since the G1 Climax final in 2021, where he lost to Kazuchika Okada by referee stoppage after suffering an injury to his shoulder. The injury, alongside various issues with New Japan management, have led to many speculating that Ibushi is set to leave the company when his contract expires this year. Naturally, his close relationship with Omega has led many to speculate AEW as a potential landing spot for the Golden Star. Taking to Twitter, Ibushi shared a reunion photo that he took with Omega during his time in Japan for Wrestle Kingdom 17, which can see Kenny Omega sporting a black eye, the same black eye that he sustained during his match against Ospreay. Keeping with the New Japan theme, New Japan Strong is coming to an end soon. New Japan star Hiroshi Tanahashi wrote about the future of New Japan Strong on his blog High Fly. Quote, "New Japan Strong, which has been going for over 2 years, will come to an end with this recording." It's the New Japan Nemesis tapings. "It seems that overseas tournaments will be announced in a different form in the future. Members of New Japan Pro Wrestling World and Strong viewers," wrote Tanahashi. Tanahashi has had matches on the Strong brand. One of his most recent ones was in November of last year for their Showdown tapings. It's interesting to note that on December 24, New Japan Pro Wrestling President Takami Abari tweeted about the show and future changes, saying, quote, "New Japan Strong will be rebuilt this year." Strong made its debut in August of 2020. The first episode, which aired on August 7, 2020, featured Kenta, Jeff Cobb, Tangaloa, David Finlay, Chase Owens, Tamatonga, Carl Fredericks, and Brody King. The weekly show aired on Saturdays and was available on both Fight and New Japan World. The current Strong Openweight champion is Fred Rosser. He's only the second New Japan star to be the champion. The first ever champion was crowned in April of 2021, and it was Tom Lawler. There's also Strong Openweight Tag Team titles that were created back in June of 2022. The current champions are the Motor City Machine Guns. The first champions were Aussie Open. The New Japan Nemesis tapings were actually yesterday, January 7. They were taking place in Hollywood, California at the Vermont Hollywood. Jay White, Kenta, Rocky Romero, Wheeler Yuta, Christopher Daniels, and Blake Christian were just a few stars that were announced for the show. There has been rumors, obviously, about this Ring of Honor show that's going to be beginning this year, airing on Honor Club. Tony Khan said that would have a big New Japan influence on it, so they could actually be merging those shows together, and maybe that's how they're going to sell Honor Club and also have that show on New Japan World as well for people in Japan. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see if we get any more information on that. Battle of the Belts was this week as well, on Friday. And for a show that features primarily title matches, we still have yet to see a title change happen at the event. During the AEW Rampage main event on Friday, Darby Allin retained his TNT Championship in a match against Mike Bennett of the Kingdom. In the opener for Battle of the Belts 5, the Acclaimed retained their AEW World Tag Team Championship. Over in the AEW Women's Division, Jade Cargill successfully defended her TBS Championship against Sky Blue. Finally, in the Battle of the Belts 5 main event, Orange Cassidy defended the AEW All-Atlantic Championship against Kip Sabian. After a precarious final third of the match, whereby it seemed that the Butcher and the Blade were poised to cost Cassidy the match, the Best Friends emerged to chase off the Interlopers. With Sabian and Cassidy now one-on-one, there were a few more near falls until ultimately Cassidy retained. So to clarify, zero titles changed hand during that show. Again, I would be interested to find out what the ratings are going to be for that show. Now, during Battle of the Belts, it was promised to us by Max Caster that we were going to get a Vince McMahon reference, of course, after Vince McMahon's return to the company, and he did not disappoint. No holds barred indeed, as Max Caster of the Acclaim did not hold back as he launched another scathing entrance rap. Going in on Jarrett, Caster not only referenced the January 6th insurrection attempt, but also a very famous wrestling name. Specifically name-dropping Vince McMahon, Max Caster was sure to note that Jeff Jarrett was worse than the aforementioned name. With a commentary referencing quite a bit of strife in his home life for Jeff Jarrett and the bad blood between them, them. The storylines on and off TV finally merged. As I mentioned, it was the Acclaim that ultimately retained their championships in a really fun match. And it must be said, for a lot of the people going, oh, Jeff Jarrett in AEW, I think he's been really, really fun. I do. I think he's really fun. And I think that was, it was a fun match, and Jarrett's been a lot of fun on AEW television. Speaking of the next Battle of the Bouts, a trip to AEW's website reveals that the promotion is scheduled to hold a double taping of AEW Rampage and the 6th edition of Battle of the Bouts in Kingston, Rhode Island on Friday, April 7th. The show will take place at the Rand Center on the University of Rhode Island campus, with tickets going on sale next week. The date confirms that episode of Rampage will be live, which would seem to suggest that AEW will continue the recent trend of airing Rampage and Battle of the Bouts back to back. While AEW has never run in Rhode Island previously, they have made several stops in New England, most notably in Boston, as well as Worcester, Massachusetts. AEW was most recently in the New England area this past November when they ran an episode of Dynamite out of Bridgeport, Connecticut. Again, maybe this will be the Battle of the Bouts, but we actually see a title change take place. Now, obviously, everyone's been talking about Vince McMahon's return to WWE, and Tony Khan waited on Twitter on Friday and kind of made a reference to the story, doing what he does best, steering it into a plug for AEW Rampage and Battle of the Bouts. And it's very Tony Khan. He said, quote, "Everyone at work is being so nice to me these past 24 hours. I wonder why. It must be belated holiday spirit. See you tonight on TNT for 2 hours of AEW Live, Friday night AEW Rampage and Battle of the Bouts back-to-back live, starting at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central tonight." Khan wasn't done, however, after a fan replied to Khan's tweet with an edited photo of AEW's boss smoking a cigar in celebration. Khan fired off another joke. "How did you get a photo of me from last night?" Khan tweeted. Khan's tweets may merely just be the precursor, as I mentioned, to Max Caster, who made the reference on Battle of the Bouts. And it's just, Tony Khan will do this. His way of now using Twitter is he'll say something outrageous and turn it into a plug for the show. That's what he does. Now, speaking of AEW stars commenting on the matter as well, AEW World Champion MJF has also put his 2 cents in. It's been reported that WWE has hired JP Morgan to help pursue a potential sale of the company, with a list of potential buyers making the rounds on Twitter following the news. The news seemingly has reached AEW World Champion MJF, who has made it known just how much he loves every single company that could potentially buy WWE. He tweeted, quote, "I don't feel like I talk about enough just how much I love Comcast, NBC Universal, Fox, Disney, Warner Bros. Discovery, Netflix, Amazon, Endeavor Holdings Group, and Liberty Media." MJF contract famously expires in 2024, and he's made no bones about how he plans on starting the bidding war of 2024 upon its expiration. So a lot of people in AEW having fun about the return of Vince. Finally, Konosuke Takeshita, could he be getting a big push in AEW? Further details of AEW's plans to push one of their roster as a top-tier guy have been revealed in a recent update. Dave Meltzer had previously reported the news that there were plans to push Takeshita, saying there was a big push on the horizon someday soon. He has now followed up the claim in the current Wrestling Observer newsletter. Going into further detail on the planned push, Meltzer said, quote, "Although he's not being featured on television right now, and when he is, he's there to lose to the top stars in great matches, there are significant plans for Takeshita to be pushed as a top-tier guy. Obviously, the Don Callis scouting storyline looks to be a catalyst in some form. Takeshita has made appearances on AEW Dark, Dark Elevation, and AEW Rampage, and he has faced top-tier competitors in AEW. In December, he faced Jon Moxley on AEW Rampage. Moxley defeated him via referee's decision. So, it would appear that there are plans on the horizon for this star involving a big push. We'll have to wait and see what that consists of. But there you go, guys. It's the latest AEW news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe button right hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on today's AEW news stories in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.